A Call from Myself, Part 1, before any of it happened. I don't really believe in things like this. I mean, I was never the type to get scared easily. I grew up watching horror movies alone, sleeping with the lights off, and I always figured that fear of the unseen was something you could manage with logic. I always thought that if something couldn't be explained, it was only because you hadn't looked hard enough. But then there was that night, and after that night, I'm not so sure about logic anymore. My name is Raka. When this happened, I was 28 years old, fresh off a long breakup, and 3 months into living alone for the first time in my life. Before that, I'd lived with 2 friends since college. We rented a small house on the edge of the city, the 3 of us, for nearly 4 years. But then they each went their own ways. One got married, one moved to another city for work, and I was left with a choice: find new roommates or try living alone. I chose the second option, not because I liked loneliness, but more because I felt like it was time. I was almost 30. It felt strange to still depend on other people just to not feel alone at home. I found the apartment through an online listing. 7th floor, Block C, room 714. Old building but well maintained. The price was reasonable for Jakarta. And most importantly, it was close to the office. I could walk if I wanted to. The first month went well. I started getting used to new sounds, the water pipes behind the walls, the upstairs neighbor who liked to walk heavily after midnight, the old elevator groaning when it moved. All of it became part of my daily rhythm, like the sound of a fan running constantly, present, but something you eventually stop noticing. But there was one thing that felt slightly off right from the beginning. The room next to mine, room 715. Part 2, Dira. The tenant of room 715 was a woman named Dira. I learned her name because about a week after I moved in, we crossed paths in front of the elevator, and she greeted me first. Friendly, her smile was genuine, but her eyes looked tired, like someone who had been carrying something for a long time, but had chosen not to talk about it. Just moved in? She said. Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, I said. Oh, glad someone finally filled that room. It was empty for a long time. She said it with a smile, but there was something in the way she said, empty for a long time, that made me a little curious. Like there was a story behind it that she chose not to continue. From then on, we exchanged greetings occasionally. Not close, but familiar enough. Her name was Dira, maybe 28 or 29. Seemed to work from home because I almost never saw her leave at normal hours. But in the evenings, sometimes I could hear sounds from her room, quiet TV, or a chair shifting. Nothing strange, nothing suspicious. Until about 2 months after I moved in, those sounds started to change. First, I started hearing crying. Very faint, maybe someone else wouldn't have noticed. But because the apartment walls were thin, and my room was directly next to hers, the sound was clear enough to reach me. Restrained crying, like someone trying very hard not to make noise. I assumed she had personal problems. Maybe a breakup, maybe family issues. I didn't want to intrude on someone's privacy. But then, 1 week before it all happened, I passed her in the corridor and she didn't greet me. Not out of rudeness, but because she genuinely didn't see me. Her eyes were vacant, looking forward but not seeing anything. I greeted her first. She startled, like she had just realized someone was standing in front of her. Oh, Raka, sorry, I wasn't focused. It's okay, are you all right? I asked sincerely. She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm fine, just a lot going on. She paused, then added something that I took as a small joke at the time. Have you ever felt like something was following you everywhere? Not a person, but something. I laughed a little. Like a bad feeling? She didn't laugh with me. No, not a feeling, but actually there. You can see it if you want to look. Then she went into her room and closed the door. That was the last conversation we had. A week later, the building guard told me that Dira had moved out. Just like that. No goodbye, no sound of luggage, no moving activity that you normally hear from the corridor. Room 715 went empty, and stayed empty for nearly a month. Part 3. Small things. After Dira left, I started noticing small things. Maybe because the apartment had gotten quieter without sounds from the room next door, or maybe because the human mind tends to search for patterns when its environment changes. But these things were real. The first was the bathroom mirror. This might sound trivial, but I started feeling uncomfortable standing in front of the mirror for too long. Not because I saw anything strange. My reflection was always normal, moving with me, nothing delayed or different. But there was a kind of discomfort that arose every time I stared at my own face for too long. Like something behind that reflection was staring back. I ignored it. Too much work, probably. The second was the elevator. Several times when I rode the elevator alone, the doors opened on the wrong floor. Not the 7th, sometimes the 4th, once the 12th. Even though the button I had pressed was 7, I never pressed any other button, but the elevator stopped at the wrong place. The doors opened, and the corridor outside was always dark and empty. I reported it to maintenance. They said the elevator had been checked and there was no problem. The third, and this is the hardest to tell, typing sounds. The sound of someone typing on a keyboard, slow, rhythmic, coming from the direction of room 715, from the empty room. I first heard it about 2 weeks after Dira left. It was nighttime around 10. I figured I'd misheard, maybe from another room, maybe from above, maybe a pipe or an insect. But then I heard it again. And again, always at night, always from the same direction, always rhythmic, like someone working. I didn't tell anyone. Part 4. That night. Thursday, the 17th. I got home from work around 9 in the evening. My body was tired in the usual way, head slightly heavy, legs wanting to stretch out, mind already half empty. The kind of tired that makes you not care about anything except the bed. In the elevator, I noticed something. The mirror inside the elevator, which usually gave a clear reflection, looked slightly different. The reflection was there. I was in it. The movement of my hands, the position of my body, all correct. But the face in that mirror didn't smile when I smiled. I stopped for a moment, looked again, and the face smiled, but half a second late. I shook my head. Maybe the lighting, maybe my eyes were too tired to focus. The elevator stopped at the 7th floor. I got out, went into the room, changed clothes, ordered food through the app, sat on the bed with my phone in hand. Normal, same as every other night. Until 9:47 p.m. Part 5. The call. My phone buzzed. I didn't look at the screen immediately. I figured it was a notification about my food order. So I glanced over, checking with half my attention. Then I stopped, looked again. There was an incoming call from my own number, not a similar number, not an unknown number with the same area code. My number, exactly, digit by digit. I declined the call. It rang again immediately. I took a screenshot of the screen first, so there would be evidence that this wasn't a hallucination. Then I answered. Silence on the other end. Not clean silence, but full silence. There was a faint background sound, like the sound of a very still, damp room. And then there was breathing, slow, steady, slightly heavy, and then the voice spoke. Raka, don't open the door. That voice was my voice, not a recording, not an imitation, not a voice that sounded similar. It was me, the way I pronounce the R, the way I break syllables, the way I breathe before I start speaking. All of it identical. I hung up, sat quietly. 5 minutes passed, 10. I tried to be logical. There's technology that can fake caller IDs. Maybe someone was messing around. Maybe there's an app that can mimic voices. Maybe someone had recorded my voice and was using it for this. But that intonation, the way it said my name, it said it like someone who had been calling that name from the inside for a long time. Part 6. The figure in the hallway. About half an hour later, I heard something outside my door. Footsteps. In an old apartment with thin wooden floors, you can feel the vibration of other people's footsteps. You can tell their weight, their walking speed, their direction. And these footsteps moved from the end of the corridor, slowly, and stopped, right in front of my room's door. I didn't move. 1 second. 2, 5. No knock, no sound. I slowly stood from the bed, walked to the door as carefully as possible, not because I was afraid of being heard, but because I didn't want to break that silence. I looked through the small hole in the door. There was someone in the hallway, standing with their back to my door. Plain gray t-shirt, black sweatpants, short hair, slightly messy, a body shape I recognized. The same shoulder width, the same way of standing in exactly the way I always stand. That was how I stood. And that was my shirt. That gray t-shirt was exactly the same as the one I just changed out of when I got home from work. The one now lying on the chair near the window. I didn't breathe. The figure didn't move, just stood there, still. 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And then the figure started to move, slowly, very slowly. Its head began turning to one side, like someone about to look back over their shoulder. I instinctively shut my eyes. 2 seconds, 3. I opened my eyes and looked through that small hole again. The hallway was empty. Part 7. The recording. I didn't leave the room, but I couldn't just sit there either. I picked up my phone and opened the voice recorder app. If something strange happened again, I needed evidence. Not just to report it, but to convince myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I placed the phone on the desk near the door, screen facing up, and pressed record. Then I went back to the bed and waited. 10 minutes passed. Quiet. No knocking, no footsteps, nothing. 20 minutes. Still quiet. I was almost relieved. Maybe it was all just suggestion. Maybe my brain was tired and starting to create things that weren't there. I stopped the recording after 30 minutes, and I played it back from the beginning. The first minute was normal. The sound of the fan, city sounds from outside the window, the sound of fabric shifting when I sat on the bed. The 5th minute, normal. The 10th minute, normal. But at the 14th minute, there was crying, a woman. Soft, restrained. Exactly like what I used to hear from the room next door, in the weeks before Dira apparently moved out. I listened harder, replayed it, turned the volume all the way up. The crying went on for nearly 4 minutes, rising and falling, restrained but not completely hidden, punctuated by sounds like someone trying to speak but not having the strength. And at one point, underneath that crying, there was a whisper, very faint, almost inaudible even at maximum volume. He's already here. I listened to it 3 times, replaying that same section 3 times until I was certain about what I was hearing. He's already here. I deleted the recording. I don't know why. Maybe fear. Maybe because part of me didn't want evidence that it was real. Part 8. The knocking. 11:15 p.m. I'd been on the phone with my mom for almost 40 minutes. I didn't tell her anything. I didn't know where to start, and I didn't want to worry her. I just talked about ordinary things. Work, what I'd eaten that day, when I was coming home to visit. After hanging up, I tried opening the laptop, tried to take my mind off things, but my concentration refused to go anywhere except that door. And then, from behind the door, there was knocking. 3 knocks, soft, rhythmic. I stopped the YouTube video I was watching. Silence. The knocking stopped. Then started again, this time lower. Like someone knocking from a very low position, from the bottom of the door. Like someone kneeling or lying on the floor. And from the gap at the bottom of the door, along with the knocking, there was a whisper. Open. One word, soft, but very clear. I didn't move. The knocking stopped. The whispering stopped. Silence returned. 5 minutes passed, and then, from the hallway, from the direction I knew, from the direction that had been quiet for a month, I heard crying. A woman. Soft, restrained, from room 715, the empty room. I got up from the bed, not because I was brave, but because part of me couldn't accept that it was real without seeing it for myself. I moved toward the wall that shared a border with the room next door. I pressed my ear against it. Clear. The crying was clearly coming from there. And then I heard something that made my entire body stop. Part 9. The phone from an empty room. A telephone ringing from inside room 715. Not a smartphone ringtone. This was the sound of an old telephone, the electric kind, long, heavy. Trying, repeating, patient, like something that knew the call would be answered. That room had been empty for nearly a month. No tenant, no electricity flowing to it. Or so I assumed. And even if there were, there was no reason for there to be an old wired telephone inside. Dira didn't seem like the type to use something like that. But the sound was there. I picked up my phone, and I did something I still can't explain. I opened my contacts. I searched for Dira's name. I had saved her number a few months earlier, after we talked in the corridor, and she offered it in case I ever needed anything. The number was still there. With a trembling hand, I pressed call. I heard the dial tone through my phone. Toot, toot. And from behind the wall, the ringing from the room next door stopped. Someone picked up. I didn't breathe. 1 second, 2, 3, and then someone spoke. The voice was tired, hoarse, heavy, like someone who hadn't slept in a very long time, or hadn't eaten, or hadn't spoken to anyone. But it wasn't Dira's voice. It was my voice. Raka, please open the door. I've been in here for a long time, please. My voice, pleading, from inside an empty room. I hung up, and I left the room. Part 10. After, I don't clearly remember how I got down to the lobby. What I remember is being in the emergency stairwell, not the elevator. I didn't want to get in the elevator, with my legs carrying me down without me really commanding them. I arrived in the lobby with no shoes, no jacket, just my phone in my hand. The night guard looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Is something wrong? I thought for a moment about what to say, then I just told him, Please don't let anyone into room 715 tonight. He nodded slowly, although he was clearly confused. I sat on the lobby sofa until morning. The next day, I asked the morning shift guard to come with me up to the 7th floor and help me collect my essentials. Before going into my room, we stood for a moment in front of room 715. The guard knocked. No answer. He used the master key. The door opened. The room inside was completely empty. Truly empty. No furniture, no belongings, no remnants of human activity. The floor had a thin, even layer of dust, the kind that builds up when nothing has walked on it for a long time. No telephone, no electricity, nothing. The guard looked at me. This room has been empty for over a month, sir, ever since the previous tenant moved out. There were sounds coming from here last night, I said. He didn't answer right away. Then he said something like, this wasn't the first time it had happened. You're not the first person to say that. I didn't ask further. I collected my things and left that same day. Closing. That was 2 years ago. I never found out what really happened that night. I never looked further into room 715, into who had lived there before Dira, into why the room had been empty for a long time before I moved in. There was one thing I did a week after I moved out. I worked up the courage to call Dira's number. I had prepared myself for the possibility that it would be disconnected, or that no one would answer, or that a stranger would pick up. But someone answered, and the voice on the other end was Dira's. Clear, calm, like nothing had happened. Dira? I could barely believe it. She didn't answer right away. There was a... And then she said 3 words. I'll tell you later. Then the call ended. She still hasn't told me.